Okay, let's talk about Instagram. Does every single gram we scroll through actually count when it comes to our body image? We're about to dive into a really fascinating study that kind of flips what we think we know about our feeds on its head.
I mean, it's the big question, right? We've all probably asked ourselves this. You're scrolling through what seems like an endless highlight reel of perfect lives and perfect bodies, and the common wisdom on this seems pretty darn clear.
So, the prevailing idea, the usual suspect, is that it's a simple equation. The more time you sink into scrolling, the worse you're going to feel about yourself. And, this isn't just a hunch, it's an idea that's actually rooted in a classic psychological theory.
And that theory is called social comparison theory. It's this core idea that we as humans are just hardwired to figure out our own worth by looking at how we measure up against other people. Now, you apply that to Instagram, and it usually means we're making what they call upward comparisons. We're stacking our everyday reality against these super curated, often edited, idealized posts, which, yeah, can definitely leave you feeling like you're falling short.
A really simple way to think about it is as the Instagram mirror. We're looking at all this content not just to see what other people are up to, but as a mirror to reflect back on ourselves. And if that mirror is constantly showing you a perfected, often unrealistic version of life, well, that's bound to mess with your own reflection. But here's the thing. Is that the whole story?
What if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if Instagram is way more than just a personal mirror? What if it's more like a lens that's subtly shaping our entire view of the world itself?
This is the huge idea behind a different theory, and it's called cultivation theory. It suggests that when you're exposed to media over the long term, it doesn't just tweak your feelings about yourself. No, it actually cultivates or grows your fundamental beliefs about what reality even is. It slowly, quietly redefines what you see as normal. This chart right here just illustrates the difference perfectly. See, social comparison is all internal. It's you versus them, and it focuses on your feelings like self-esteem. But cultivation theory, it's way bigger. It's about you in the world. It's saying the stuff you consume can actually change your core beliefs about society and even push you towards real-world actions, like changing your diet or how you judge other people. So you might be wondering, how does this cultivation thing actually work? Well, the theory breaks it down into 3 stages, or orders. First, it messes with your guesses about the world. For example, you might see so many thin bodies that you start to underestimate how common it is for people to be overweight. Second, it shapes your opinions, so you start adopting stricter ideas about what an ideal body should look like. And third, it actually shapes your actions, which could lead to things like disordered eating. And this is exactly what researchers decided to put to the test. So armed with this whole new way of looking at things, a team of scientists designed a really clever experiment to see if cultivation theory could explain what's really going on when we're deep in a scroll session. Here's how they did it. They got 228 young adults, but here's the crucial part. They didn't just ask how many hours do you spend on the app. No, they separated the quantity of use from the quality of use. They specifically tracked how often people were browsing public content from strangers, influencers and brands, versus just keeping up with their actual friends. And then they measured those 3 potential cultivation effects we just talked about, the effects on beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. And what they found? Well, it was not at all what you'd expect. The results really challenged some of our most basic assumptions about social media. Okay, so let's get to the first huge finding. The researchers took a look at the link between the sheer number of hours people were on Instagram every week and how they felt about their bodies. And they found basically nothing. That's right, the total time spent scrolling, the one thing we all tend to worry about, it wasn't a significant predictor of body dissatisfaction, messed up beliefs, or changes in diet. This is a direct hit to that old idea that just more scrolling means more problems. But then they looked at the quality of that time. Specifically, they drilled down on the habit of browsing through the public feeds of strangers. The influencers, the celebs, the accounts you don't actually know. And that turned out to be the key. This one specific behavior was the thing that predicted major changes in people's worldview and their actions. So the really important question becomes, what exactly did it change? This table just lays it out so perfectly. Okay. So first question, did browsing all that public content make a person feel worse about their own body? The answer, incredibly, was no. But then, did it change how they judged other people's bodies? Oh yeah, absolutely. More public browsing was directly linked to having stricter ideas about weight. And finally, did it affect their actual eating habits?
Yes, across the board, for everyone, it was linked to a higher risk of disordered eating. So, what is the big takeaway here? I mean, why is this difference between the time we spend and what we're actually doing so incredibly important? Well, what the researchers think is going on is that browsing the feeds of strangers cultivates what they call a third-person gaze. So instead of turning that lens inward and comparing ourselves, this activity seems to train our brains on how to look at and evaluate other people. We're not just looking in a mirror, we're literally learning a new and often much stricter way to see the world around us. And honestly, this is so empowering. The message here isn't to demonize social media or that you have to go on some big digital detox. Instead, it's telling us that we can be more mindful and intentional. It's about curating what we see and just being aware of the huge difference between connecting with our friends and passively consuming content from strangers. And the authors of the study really just put it perfectly, summing the whole thing up. They said, it might be much less important how often people use social media than what they use it for. The focus really needs to shift from quantity to quality, from the simple social media is bad story to a much smarter, more nuanced understanding of our digital habits. So this all leaves us with a final, and I think really crucial question to ask ourselves. It prompts us to look at our own feeds not just as entertainment, but as a kind of curriculum. What beliefs, what attitudes, and what habits is your scrolling actually teaching you? What kind of world is it cultivating inside your mind? It's definitely something worth thinking about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.